Rap Diaries. Rap Diaries. Rap Diaries. Rap Diaries. Rap Diaries. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rap Diaries, where we talk all things rap, hip-hop industry. We are your hosts. I am Chris L. Sucio.
And I'm J.K.Forreal.
And today we have a special guest. He is an emeritus A&R from Atlantic Records. Please welcome Curtis Harris Jr. to the show.
Give it up.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. More.
I can give you more.
No, I'm good.
Pause.
I'm good. I appreciate it. I don't normally say pause, but that definitely is pause worthy, I guess. So, yeah, that's funny.
Word, man. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Definitely a pleasure to have you, man.
Yeah,
Looking
man.
forward to seeing what you got to share with us and with the people tuning in.
All right, so tell us a little. Tell us about how you got into the music industry.
So, I was like, I've always loved music. And I didn't necessarily play instruments, although I played the flute in 5th grade, which was kind of stupid. I don't know why I did that, but I did,
All good.
And my dad bought
Somebody
my
made you.
flute from like the pawn shop too, so that didn't make me want to stick around there because it looked bad. The case was old. I think I was like 4th chair by default because we had only 5 flute players. Shit, the other guy was worse than me.
Hey, man.
I think that's like the grade where like they make you do music. 'Cause that's when I started doing music, probably like 3rd, 4th grade.
It wasn't fun, but I was more of a recorded music person, right? So I always like listening to recorded music more than even like concerts and things. So I remember my mom always playing like Roberta Flack and things like that around the house. My dad, we used to ride around listening to Key Sweat one moment and listening to like Public Enemy next moment. And apparently I was into like beat juggling as a kid because there's a Public Enemy song. I think 911 is a joke. In the beginning of the song, he's like, "Hit me." My dad said I would always tell him like, "Start over, Dad. Play it again." So in my mind, I guess I was already kind of thinking like that.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, like in high school, people that knew me would say I was probably a cool nerd. That's what I was told. So I didn't really ever go anywhere. I was always at home. So I'd just be like listening to music on the radio and listening to, I remember like the mix show hours when they're live at the club. I'm like listening to this stuff and like, man, I wish I was there, but really always listen to the music. And I noticed I was able always to spot like songs that later on became kind of hits. I could tell when there's something unique about something, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward to college. One of my good friends, AJ, and he came from a musical family, right? His dad DJs. His sister, she's a doctor, and she grew up DJing, and his other sister DJ, so they're all musical. So we linked up in college, and we became good friends, me and AJ. And so we used to talk about how bad the parties were on campus, right? And so he was like, "Man, back home we used to do better stuff than this." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So why don't you do it here? So he started, got his turntable, started doing parties. I should tag along with him. So then I started DJing with him. I bought my own turntables. And so that kind of sparked my curiosity, right? And so I used to love breaking music at rap parties. So I'd play like, newer stuff. And then I got to the point where I was like, I really like to be involved in like the, not just playing the music, but the actual process of like the making of the music and putting it out. So again, I'm not a musician, but I've always had the mindset of like, okay, like if I have a company selling hot sauce, right? I don't want to just sell hot sauce. I want to be involved in growing the peppers. I might not be a farmer, but I'm really interested in either vertical or horizontal integration, one of those terms. I'm interested in like,
You're a big picture guy.
yeah, the big picture, the A to Z. And so I was always like that. And so I remember in 09, I didn't like the music. It was out. I thought it was kind of crazy. It was some of the music garbage. So I stopped DJing. And I said, all right, how can I get in the music business? And so I looked up what an A&R was, artist and repertoire. Old school term, like guys who originally, most of the earlier A&Rs were like musicians themselves or producers that like a label hired to like project manage like a project, right?
And they like were they the people that discovered like, oh, I discovered this person that.
Yeah. So a lot of people think A&Rs are just talent scouts, which that's a part of it, but really you can be a talent scout. You can bring a label somebody, but it doesn't mean they trust you to oversee a project.
Right.
So A&R is really like a paid producer in one sense. Like they might not be making it, but I'm saying they're overseeing a project, So
Yeah.
I was looking it up, old school term, artist and repertoire. And I remember I spent the summer of 08, trying to, figure out what I want to do. And finally I graduated from college in 09. And I found out the alumni in my school was the CEO of Atlantic, Craig Howman. And he's still CEO of Atlantic now. And so I decided to email him, looked him up in the database, and people thought I was crazy. And I remember like it was like Thursday morning. I got a phone call from a private number. Like, who is this? And I answered, and he was like, "Is this Curtis?" I'm like, yeah. He said, "Craig's on the other line." And he's like, "Hey, I got your email. What do you want? How can I help you?" Straight to the point.
That's what's up.
So I told him I wanted to work, for the label or whatever, and he hooked me up with some people. I started sending them some records, and next thing you know, they brought me in as a consultant. So
Very nice.
Nice. Yeah, sometimes you gotta just reach out, even if it seems.
but timing was on my side too, because I feel like in '09, it probably wasn't a ton of people in my situations doing that. Like nowadays, doing that, I think it might be a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But like timing was on my side too.
And I also feel like the way record labels discover people is a lot different now anyway.
they want
The industry in general is different.
I was in that transition period, right? So, like in the first A&R meetings I went to, and I always say this is how you know somebody was like a legit A&R or not. They get invited to those A&R meetings. I'm sure they still do A&R meetings. Maybe it's different now because I've been out a long time. But like I was a consultant, so I came in as just someone who, they paid me like a certain amount of money a month just consulting, which I hated, and I always wanted to like move up so I can be like a director of A&R, a VP, and all that. But look back, it's really good being a consultant because you're a freelancer.
Yeah.
So you can be a consultant, do consultant work for Sony, do it for Atlantic, do it for whoever. You kind of hedge your bets so that nobody locks you in, right?
You don't have a non-compete.
Right. So I didn't know that at the time. So it really was a blessing. But really, like I said, that time that was a transition period where they were still like I still went to clubs and open mics, but they were starting to look at online analytics, right? So, and I'm like now it's probably even more analytical. Like you got A&Rs that probably never leave the office. They just look online and assess analytics and then hedge their bets and invest money in artists. So
Yeah, I think now they want artists that have done most of the work themselves.
yeah,
So you gotta.
Sure. You said you were DJing at was it for during college or whatever?
I was mobile DJ.
Mobile DJ. How did that look? How did that come around?
Speakers and all. So yeah, like me and my friend AJ, like we were just a dynamic duo. Like, you know what I mean? I used to usually play before him, so I would play like our parties at Brown were like from 10 to 2. So like I'd be playing at 10 o'clock to 11, which is cool. You could play almost whatever you wanted. But I was DJing like it was a crowd there, like for real. And so like 10 to 11, maybe sometimes 11:30, and then really party get started kind of at 12. And then at one point I started doing my own parties. And so like for me, it was fun. I feel like I always had a kind of my finger to the pulse of the audience. So I always kind of understood what my audience wanted, right? And I grew up with a diverse array of musical interests. So like I said, Public Enemy, Keith Sweat, everything. The first party I ever DJed, I remember my friend was warming it up, right? And so he's like, "All right, you ready?" And I hopped in. It was a mixed crowd, like this white frat house. And the first record I played was Eurythmics' "Sweet Dreams," and they went crazy. And I knew I had it. I was like, "Okay, knew it. I knew it." And he looked at me like, "What?" I just knew something told me it worked. Then I played an Aaliyah record that didn't work, but the "Sweet Dreams" worked, and so I just knew I had it. So I feel like to this day, even though I'm out of the music business, I can hear something and I know it's something special about it. I'm like, okay, it's something unique about that record.
Yeah.
So,
Word. And did you do any like radio DJing, or was it strictly just for parties and stuff?
it was just mobile DJing. My friend talked about this the other day. It's like, man, I wish I had done some radio stuff, but it was just mobile DJing, like old school. Like I had vinyl turntable, like vinyl CDJ. So we put a CD in there, but it was vinyl manipulated.
Yeah.
So it had lights and speakers and fog machine and all. It was like real old school mobile DJing. So it was fun.
Nice. All right. And at what point, I guess when was it again that you said you had reached out to, he was the CEO or COO?
CEO Craig Kalman, CEO of Atlantic.
At what point, what year was that?
So this is 2009, the summer. So I had graduated summer '09 school, and I was already I knew I wanted to pursue being an A&R, right? And so I had done a little due diligence. I was in Providence, Rhode Island. Like I had reached out to I think a producer up there and went and just I was making beats. Not because I thought I was good at it, because I wasn't, but just to teach myself. Again, A to Z, just learning things. And so
Right.
I was just doing my due diligence just to learn and meet people. And so when I reached out to Craig, again, the timing was just good because he didn't bring me in right away. He paired me with somebody else, and then they said I could send them records. And I remember what I did was I was like, okay, I kind of created an unofficial internship for myself. So I wasn't an intern, but they're like, okay, yeah, you can tell people you're working with us and just do what you do. So immediately I signed up for email listserv, which linked me with a bunch of like producers and managers. Again, this is old school stuff that you couldn't do as much now. I met Anthony Hamilton's manager, Eli Davis, shout out to him. I met this guy that managed producers that told me, hey, we got a second single on this kid. He's over at Def Jam. They used to talk, the whole building's going crazy over him. I was like, yeah, who's this kid? It's just a white guy. I think his name was like Bieber or something they were saying. I was like, who's that? It was Justin Bieber. So they had his second single. And so I went to their studio. I never met Bieber, but I was always around producers and songwriters, right? So really just ran with that. Went to open mics. Really was real deep in it. Like I was deep in this thing for real. Like I was at a hood open mics in Atlanta. I was at studios / stash houses / people cutting hair, shooting pool, all that, you know what I mean? And sending music into the label. And so I remember I sent them a record called Mr. Get You Right. It was supposed to be for Pleasure P. And then some stuff went down with that. But it got their attention. And they were like, oh, okay, this kid got it. So I always say, I remember like I was watching the award show when Kanye, ran up on the stage with Taylor Swift. And then like the next week or however long it went, I was sitting next to Kanye West's manager in a meeting in the A&R. So I always say that's how fast it can go. So you have to be prepared because you don't know. It could be a long time. It could be a short time. You got to be ready because you don't know what's going to happen. So I remember, to be honest, those first A&R meetings I went to too, dude, I was like a little boy in a grown man's game. I was like serious because I didn't know how political it was. So I'm in there, they playing records. I'm playing records. I'm like, they brought me up here. So, I'm a man. Yeah. But I didn't know it was like Game of Thrones in there. It was like, okay, these guys are a lot of A&Rs. Like they know they have they're guard. They're the gatekeepers, right, for the label. So people are sending them records. So they'll do stuff like, oh, okay, you send them a record. They think it's pretty dope. Who's that producer? Oh, he's dope. Okay, all right. Let's say I'm representing Lupe Fiasco. All right, I'll get this to Lupe. But really, before they get music to an artist, sometimes they're trying to make that producer sign to their publishing company on the side, trying to manage them or trying to get you to be managed by their guy. You're trying to funnel stuff. And I didn't know any of this. And so I was a disruptor. I came in, no affiliations with nothing. I'm not in no secret societies. I know nothing. And so I'm just playing music. I'm disrupting things. Like people are giving me records from the streets in Atlanta and I'm taking it straight to New York to the A&R meetings. And that's unheard of. And I didn't know at the time that's not how people do it. What really should have done is said, okay, before I take this in, let's cut kind of a deal. Because I'm just a consultant, right? So I don't work for the label. I work for the label, but I'm not contractually obligated to them. So I can say, okay, if I take this in and it gets picked up, I get 10% of this, or I get this, or I get that. I didn't know any of that stuff. So literally, I'm putting people on like crazy. And people are starting to recognize on the streets, like, oh, he got to connect. And so that kind of messed up my relationship with some of the other A&Rs who were really more greedy. Because before, they might have told someone, hey, if you want me to bring this in, you got to do this and other. Now they have another avenue in, which is me. So now they feeding me stuff, and I'm bringing. They
don't need to give away a cut.
Yeah, I'm going because I had a relationship with the CEO, so I'm just playing records, and so I was a disruptor. Like I was, but I knew what I was doing because I brought him Travis Porter back in the day, and they didn't bite on that. I brought him like numerous other things, numerous other people. I brought him Roscoe Dash. Had a meeting with Roscoe Dash. They didn't bite on that. But I didn't know it's because they were like trying to nail down publishing and producers associated with records. There's a lot of BS going on. I just didn't know. And they're making me feel like some of the A&Rs, like I don't know what I'm talking about. But that wasn't the case. They were like, trying to kill some situations because they couldn't have people sign to them on the side. So a lot of craziness that goes on.
Is there anything that's like maybe most people don't know, like any kind of advice that, hey, this goes on behind the scenes, maybe you should watch out for that could affect the artist?
Yeah, so I think, and I used to talk to some of the artists I work with. I feel like it was like two extremes that I would see people kind of mess up on, right? Two ditches, so to speak, on the side. There are the people that were like obsessed with the political nature of the music business, right? Mm-hmm. And so these are like the people that are like the industry equivalent of folks that talk to you about UFOs all day, right? And so it's like, okay, whether those do or don't exist, that's valid, but I still need to, like, if I'm working a job, I need to do my job, right? I can't be so obsessed with UFOs, I don't do my job, right? Yeah. And so there are people that in the industry are just, like, obsessed with political nature and stuff. Like, I'll never make it because I don't have this connection. I have this and I have that. And meanwhile, they never recorded any music, right? So there's that. And then there are people that are just completely naive and oblivious to what's going on around them. And I probably erred on that side initially. So it's like, I'm just up here like raw talent. I'm just, I like it. I'm a fan of it. I'm sending it in. And you have to be aware, because if you're not aware, I think you run the risk of being disappointed and frustrated, and also kind of pissing off people around you, because you could do something to mess up somebody else's situation. You know what I mean? Because you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I learned a lot of lessons. I remember one time I was in the studio. His producer, Don Vito, he taught me a really important lesson. I was in the studio house, and I was sitting in the lobby waiting on him. He had a meeting going on, and there was some guys, and I don't know if they're artists, songwriters, whatever, and they asked me who I was, because I was a quiet little bookworm. I just do that, sat in the background just chilling. I looked so different than everybody else that was like at that level in the industry.
Yeah.
But I was completely comfortable who I was, so it was cool. But I was just chilling, and people asked, "Oh, so what do you do?" I said, "I work for a label." Like, work for a label. So all set in their minds now. It's like, all right, oh, here's our card, here's our information. So we chopped it up. And so then Don Vito, he brought me upstairs. Hey, I want to talk to you. And he said, "Hey, I know you probably don't know this, but you have to be careful in those situations, right? Because you're waiting in here for me, and these guys are waiting on the meeting. What if I was gonna try to introduce them to you? I had some kind of business. Now they're gonna cut me out." He said, "I know you don't know this because you're new, but I'm telling you this so you can avoid conflicts." So I was blessed to have people who showed me stuff, and I listened.
So it's a
'Cause
lot
this
more
is-
political than.
Yeah, it's just awareness, because you can step in some BS and not know it, and people won't tell you,
Yeah.
and you don't know what's going on. So it's just, you learn how to kind of maneuver, and I've learned that with situations, right? Just, and you don't know that stuff. Like, if you weren't raised that way, or you're just not naturally that kind of a person that thinks that way, you don't know.
Yeah, that's me.
So,
I hate that it's that way where, if you do something wrong, a lot of people won't like call you out on it, and obviously there's a way to do it, but like if you don't know, then how can they really be pissed off at you? If they're not telling you like, yo, don't do that because you're messing with this or that or whatever.
yeah. I had a few, so I always think, like I said, I had a few people that kind of called me out, or it made me aware. And I imagine there are people that probably got offended. I just didn't know. Like, I remember, again, I learned so much stuff, dude, like studio etiquette, right? So, going to studios, because I was an A&R, so what came with that is, like, people had assumptions about A&Rs, right? Usually, so they assume, then most of them are a certain way. Those are industry dudes, right? They're the guys that are going to tell you one thing and do another thing, right? And I remember, like, when I first came to New York for my meetings with Atlantic, I met with some people who I hadn't met through like a listserv, right? I went and sat in this guy's house, and he played me all these records. And I listened to all of it and gave him feedback. He's like, "No A&R's ever done that." I was just different, you know what I mean? I was more human, and I understood, because I came from the bottom up. I didn't come into this thing politically. So it's just things that you learn, right? And I learned, like, okay, going to studio sessions, I would play tracks, right, for beats that producers gave me, for like a producer, to give them an idea of like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Because when I was a consultant, so I'm getting records for a variety of projects, and they would have what they call like one sheets. They would give us for all the artists that was looking for stuff on the label, right? So each one sheets had funny titles. It'd be like, oh, I think it was like CeeLo Green at the times on this, like, oh, looking for a Prince meets Madonna meets Gnarls Barkley in 2045. It's like, what? But I guess if you got it, you got it. And so, I had to learn, okay, don't present this stupid stuff on a one sheet to people. Like, synthesize this down, right? And also when you go in there, someone's, "Oh, so what are you looking for?" Right? I was new. "Oh, I'm looking for tracks for like all 10 of these projects or label." Bro, like, this is a track producer, right? Or this is a whatever. This guy played, he does jazz stuff. Like, no. Narrow it down to one or two things, feed that to him, right? And then, let him get your stuff. Even with sending records into the label, right? Don't send people 10, 20 records, no. Narrow it down, send them one or two at a time, let them listen to it, because it's the law of diminishing return. I'm new, right? And so they don't look at, they're not giving me the same grace that I gave other people. The label wasn't. Yeah. I'm new, and so these people are in LA and New York hearing like freaking Timberland production and other cutting edge stuff, and I'm sending them tracks that I think are great, but I'm not realizing maybe they're not great to them, because again, our ears are different. And it wasn't really till I went to LA for the first trip out there, and I got around other producers, and I heard, oh, okay, this is better than the production I've been hearing. So, you just learn these things because people, you send them one or two whack things. If they don't, let's say they think it's whack, done. Because the industry is all about, does this person have an ear or not?
Yeah.
And so when you're hot, everybody's coming at you. But if they think you cooled off, same with the producer. It's like, yo, if they think your production ain't hitting no more, it's freaking crickets. So it's like, and it can switch up on you like that.
It's finicky, man.
Very much so. But it's justifiably finicky because the consumers are finicky.
Yeah.
And so if I'm still operating like something's hot 6 months down the line, remember, it's a pipeline. So we're making stuff that might come out when it has come out months later, years later. So if I don't realize things have changed up, I can be behind. So we're releasing duds because I'm not realizing like the sound is changing. Right. So it's like DJing, right? It's like, I really have to be in the moment to know what's up. I can't be playing slow songs and people are getting hyped right now, so I kind of get why the industry is like that to an extent.
Because the people are the people that buy, so
yeah,
or consume at least.
I feel like the industry is a necessary evil, and I don't say evil. It's a necessary monster in one sense. So there's aspects of it I don't like, right? The exploitative aspects, right? Mm-hmm. But then you do have people that have been around for a long time that really do know how this thing works. Like we think we know, but no. Like Craig example, right? Craig Kalman, who brought me in, I seen pictures of him with Aaliyah. He signed Biggie back in there. He gave Junior Mafia a deal over there. He's been in the music industry since the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how many people you've seen come and go? So when you've been around a lot of superstars, a lot of people, you pick up on common themes, right?
Yeah.
You can tell by how somebody eats ice cream, whether they're ready or not for whatever. So it's little things you think are stupid, but I'm saying it's like, if you've been around, Clive Davis, an example, you've been around everybody from Janis Joplin to Whitney Houston to Alicia Keys. Dude, you think they don't see commonalities and know, the little things, right? Even to like, they know how to get their record promoters excited, how to get their radio people excited. They know this stuff. And so now, the flip side is when you can use that knowledge for what? Good or bad. Mm-hmm. So you can use that to exploit people. You know what an addict looks like. You know what someone who maybe their husband is a weak link in a situation, what that looks like too. You know who to exploit in a situation. Yeah. You know who's going to fold. You know who's not going to fold. You know who you need to get rid of. So
it's the game.
So it is. I'm saying it's kind of a necessary animal because, in one sense, it allows the creatives to just focus on creating, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to have to focus on all this other stuff too, because it can get dirty, man. Because like being A&R, in one sense, man, it's a dark side of that too. It's I can tell you stories about, you hear hit records from people and you're like, oh man, that was a dope record, but you don't know how that happened. Mm-hmm. Like I heard a story about I think it was around the time Sierra was signed. They said, so this is before I came in, so I was hearing these stories after the fact, that it was a bunch of like similar girls that this one label signed all these female artists that are similar, right? Mm-hmm. And they knew it was one amongst the ones they signed that they really want to promote. So they signed all the competition. So, and they sabotaged them so the other one could rise and funnel the record to the other one.
But who sabotaged them?
So, I don't know the label, but I'm saying it was like, so the label went out and they found, because they do this now, when something's hot, they try to find everything that's like that, right?
Right.
And so they went and found all these similar acts. Let's say, like, if you look at a list of the top 20 of a certain type, let's say black female artists from Texas, ages 18 and 25, I'm just saying an example, right? Mm-hmm. If you go out there and somehow are able to sign 5 out of those 10, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe through your label, maybe through partnerships with other people, maybe you got your homeboy manager one, you got all this stuff, so you're affiliated with all of them, right?
Right.
And the plan is really to get behind one. Maybe see who rises, and then we really get behind one and we sabotage others. Oh. So you create an artificial economy, so to speak. So this thing, and that's not the average deep quote unquote A&R dude out there on the street that sends A&R. Like that's the exceptional level of Machiavellianism, I would say. But it exists, and they never had those conversations with me because I think they sent that wasn't like that. But I recognize it. I saw it. They would teach me things like, okay, you know everything about this producer who you're going around, his shoe size, his favorite color, favorite ice cream, and I get it because the more you know, the more ammunition you have to use, good or bad, to motivate or to move them aside if you need to. So, so I saw all that kind of stuff. And I think they realized that, certain people that I was aware early on, And I was never approached on some like, oh, come join us in our evil scheme. It wasn't nothing like that. But I think that it's like you get at that level, you get good at identifying, like I said, who's a threat and who is an ally or who's an asset. And who, so I think I was just viewed as like, all right, this dude ain't gonna play ball. So we're not necessarily gonna sabotage him. A little bit they sabotage him, but we're just not gonna help him. So he's just gonna drown out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And how long were you in that position? How long were you doing that kind of work?
So I actually only got paid with Atlantic for about like a year or so, and then I was still a consultant, but kind of on like a per basis. Like, I would bring them things. If I brought them something that was valuable, I could kind of, get a piece of that, if that materialized. So really, I spent the majority of my time working with independent artists and just being, working with songwriters and producers, and sending things in. So, I had a limited time of maneuvering at the industry at a certain level in New York, visits to LA. But most of my time was just spent really in the trenches with songwriters, producers, and artists. So I have a lot of empathy for them because I'm not a dude that spent all this time, in New York, So, and it's tough. I think one of the things I kind of learned where I messed up is that I valued people over money or people over hot product.
Yeah.
And you should value people. It's true. But you can't keep, I guess, putting money and time and resources, me and him talk about this, behind the artist, even as a producer, because you like them and nothing's coming out of it.
Right.
And so there's times where I didn't pull the plug soon enough, I think, in some situations. And not only did it not get me good product, but it messed my reputation up probably. It probably made others in the industry like, I like Curtis, he's a nice guy, but do I trust that he can get it done? No, I can't say that. And I can be honest, I can say that now,
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn. It's learning experience. It's a different world.
It's parallel to the streets. That's why I joke. Like, I grew up in the projects when I was little, but it's not like I grew up like knowing all this super street stuff. But when I got involved in the music business, because it ran so parallel, now I think they're kind of intertwined a little bit more. Because it ran so parallel, I understand a lot of like street stuff, a lot just inherently, because the music industry was similar. Like I told you, being careful, of introductions, being careful who you're affiliated with, right? I remember the story, the guy had told me, like, man, you got to be careful who you affiliate in this thing because you think you know people one way, but you don't know them. So you meet somebody in the studio, think they're cool, you go right up the street somewhere to get something to eat. That dude could, he could just murk somebody yesterday or could be a trapper. And so when they come get you, they're going to kill everybody in the car. And so I was, this sounds extreme telling you this, right? But
Yeah.
I'll tell you how, so someone told me that, and I remember I met a guy in the studio, and he was cool. And so I remember he was telling me, about his affiliations, right? And he knew some dudes out of Memphis who I had just met a couple of years before, and they flew me up there. And I knew the guys he mentioned, one of them had went on trial for murder right after I left. It was like some serious people. And he knew some people in Atlanta that he mentioned that I also knew that. And it's not like I knew everybody in the streets, but he mentioned people that I just happened to know of. And so I was like, I like this guy, but I'm not really gonna hang around him too much. A month later, he was on the highway, and I saw the news story, and somebody pulled up beside his car and put 13 bullets in it.
Damn.
So, not saying I would have been hanging with him necessarily, but you just learn, like I said, to like vet situations a little bit better. Because you have to, because you don't know people like the way you think. And then like if I introduce somebody to Jason, right, and they end up not being solid, that can mess up my relationship with him. So you just, I guess you learn these things in time. I think learning lessons.
I think this might be a great time to stop and do our good old
Sweet 16.
What do you think? What do you think?
Damn, that get louder?
I know it feels really loud. Let me turn it down a little bit. Try it one more time.
Sweet 16.
That's a little better.
It's a little better.
Cool. So if you're tuning in, you already know what it is. We're both, me and Sucio, we're going to spit 16 each. Mr. Curtis Harris Jr. is not going to join us.
He will.
I don't rap. I support rappers, but I don't rap. I support some rappers. I should say.
All right. Who's going first? You want me to go first?
If you want.
Who went first last time?
Damn, I can never remember these things.
I think you went first last time.
All right.
All right, cool. So I'll go first, I guess. Get mine out of the way. All right, here we go. One more time.
Sweet 16.
Let's do it. Look. Yeah. When I step into the club, ayy, everybody saying what's up, ayy. And you know we poppin' bubbly, going pour into the cup, ayy. And we do this all night, and we feeling alright, having good times in the right way. But I'm really drinking Sprite, ayy, or maybe it's Mountain Dew. Pour it from the fountain too. But for real though, that's the fountain of youth. But for real though, I'm shouting the truth. Got a little time left to finish this 16. Can't be picky, gotta write it down swiftly. Better roll out like noodle on 20s. Belly is full, but my tank is empty.
Yeah, Sucio, yeah, Sucio. A man, I'm playing all up in a birth canal, getting pussy from here to Panama. Go right down, even if the smell is foul. Olympic swimming got the gold medal stamina. Rappers out here sucking dick for a record deal. No dicks in my mouth, that's just how I feel. Started think would I eat pussy for a record deal? Hell yeah, that's just how I feel. Homophobia in hip-hop, like taking a shower in prison. And the soap drop, let me not be a menace. My name ain't preach, ran my Akashic records. There's some things you can't teach, I'm so juvenile. Watch that ass back up, subtract bullshit from the equation. Watch that math add up, so much fly, my poo-poo smell like roses. No coat in Alaska, cause you know that I'm the coldest. Sucio.
Yeah, Sucio.
What
yeah.
that is,
Yeah. JK.Forreal. Let's give it up.
Get up for the participants. And that beat is I don't even know what that beat is called.
That's nice.
JigglyPuff?
Yeah, it's JigglyPuff or something like that.
We can put a link in there.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the description. It's a YouTube beat. Word.
That was Sweet 16.
Sweet 16, yes sir, yes sir.
Get right back into it.
I feel like I have stories for days, so you guys just got to give me like a topic and ask your question.
Is there any, like, instead of talking about, let's see, we were talking about the dark side of the music industry for a little bit. Is there anyone that was, like, really went out of their way to help you
Yeah, so
see how things work?
a few people saw. I always remind myself of this, and I thank God for this. For every situation in which I feel like somebody, tries to hold me back, tries to hate on me, if I really think about it, there's plenty of people who like looked out for me. So Don Vila, like I mentioned, he didn't have to do that. He could have just like said, "Oh, okay, word, that's how that dude is," and then just talked about me sabotaging behind my back. So he pulled me to the side. There's plenty of other people that stepped in and just told me, like, they were honest and said, "Hey, man, again, you might not know, but I'm just telling you this so you know." And I listened. And I remember one case, I was trying to get in the studio with this producer with Drama Boy, right? And so shout out to him and his manager. Whenever I say I saw him, his manager just wouldn't either wouldn't pick up or wouldn't let me in. And I get it because people try to guard the artist, right? In their mind, like they know A&R, so it's like, why do I need to deal with you? And also, two people have this love-hate relationship with A&R, so like, you might have to do business with an A&R who ripped you off of publishing when you first started. So I know people like that. But you still have to deal with them because it's just a part of the industry.
Yeah.
So people had their feelings about A&Rs. And so I remember there was a manager for Shawty Red, a producer, his manager, German, at the time, this older black guy. I had met him through D. Rich, who's a big-time producer now, big-time trap producer. He came up with Shawty Red. I met German through him, and he just liked me. And I've always had this connection with old black guys. It's funny, like my grandpa's like, he liked me, and he just looked out for me. And I remember, like, he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna introduce you to Shawty Red," and I wasn't even trying to do that. So he introduced me to a bigger producer, and I see a German. I'm having a hard time getting in with some of these other producers, right? Drama Boy, the other folks. He said, "For real?" And so he picked up the phone and called Drama Boy's manager, Squeak. I said, "Hey, Squeak, Curtis, young brother trying to do his thing, man. Give him, let him meet with you. Give him a chance. Open the door for me." Mm-hmm. So I had people that. And I'm that kind of dude too. I'm gonna call for you on the spot. I have people that really did look out, that helped me out when they didn't have to. You know what I mean? And to me, that was more valuable than money. Yeah. Because it showed me also too that there's still light in this darkness. So there's never an excuse for me to be dark. Because you can do that. You can say, "Hey, everybody else out there getting it, so screw it, man. I'm gonna have to do it too." But I had too many counterexamples of people who weren't like that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, even Craig giving me a chance. He didn't have to do that. You know, like he really didn't have to do that at all. So I appreciated that.
Where
Do you see like artists get taken advantage of?
Not around me. So it's funny. I always felt like, people think you think about. I was told this when I first got involved that like Suge Knight, that there would never be like another Suge Knight again. And when I was told, it's like because he caught the industry off guard, right? Because he, came in and he really did intimidate folks. People were really scared,
right?
And so in their mind, they're like, there are certain types of people. I feel like that certain executives prefer to deal with. Really, people who they can manipulate or people who can control artists. And so me, I wasn't like physically or intimidating like that, but I feel like I was the kind of person either through sheer ignorance because I just wasn't aware, or just through maybe my character or something. I thank God for that. Who just people didn't play with me like that. It's like okay, they realized that all right, he's not manipulating his artists, and they just didn't come at me a certain way. So like some stuff, people did their dirt when I wasn't around. But they never, like, I never saw certain, things, right? Because they didn't treat me that way. Because I told you, the music industry is like the streets, man. It's a giant pimp hoe thing, right? So it's like, if someone can disrespect my artist, it's like disrespecting your property in their mind. I'm not saying that, but it's like, look, it's like a sneak diss. So if someone can, like, treat my artist a certain way in my presence and I don't do nothing, that tells the artist that I'm weak and I'm not going to do nothing. And it tells the other person that, okay, Curtis ain't going to do nothing. Okay, what's next? And so it's like that prison stuff, it's like I feel like it was like Oz or something. Sometimes mine is all the implicit gay stuff. You know what I mean? So it was but again, I didn't see those things, but I saw like the smoke. I saw like like how okay, this can lead to this and other. So yeah, I didn't really encounter anybody disrespecting the artists that I was around. I heard stories. I know artists that disrespected themselves because at the end of the day, I would give them just game and I learned. How you should carry yourself, do this, do that, right? But at the end of the day, if you've determined in your mind that you're going to make it by hook or by crook, doesn't really matter what I have to say. I can tell you this stuff, right? When an executive walks in, you're going to bust it open for a deal. Doesn't really matter what I have to say, you know what I mean? And I just tell them, when you do that, you just become another one. So yeah, but I always tried to encourage artists, as much as I could. Nobody can say I took anything from them. Yeah. Never did that.
Word. You got any other thoughts?
Man, because I just think about like there's I follow Spotify for artists and it was like I think it was Dua Lipa. It's like advice for Instagram has like the channels for different things, and it was just like a short clip of her saying, "Read the fine print." And that was the end of the clip.
I believe I should tell y'all funny stories though. Like we talk about the serious stuff. I got kicked out of 2 studios one night.
We did some funny stuff.
Yeah. So before I get to the studio story, so I have a Lupe Fiasco story. Like how he kicked me out of his dressing room. So
did he kickflip?
It's funny. So what's funny? I heard this. Like he's not a conscious rapper, but there are people that you wouldn't assume that are really that gangster, seem real chill. But they got some real street dudes around them, right? And there are people that you think are hard that aren't. So I remember I was really cool with Grand Hustle at one point, right? They showed me more love than Atlantic did. Shout out to them, Clay, rest in peace, Clay Evans and Doug and all those guys over there. Like at the time, so this was like T.I. was in jail. He was incarcerated at the time. So I came over there right when he was incarcerated, and so you knew I was over there for legit reasons because I wasn't over there just to be around him. Now I was also over there later when he got out, and then I was over there again when he went back to jail. But I remember, just hanging around those dudes. They taught me a lot, like all the stuff I'm telling you about, right? And so I remember I went to a concert at Morehouse with them because B.O.B. Bob was the first artist I ever worked with. Nothing on You, that record. I was in a meeting when they played that, and that was like a record with him and Lupe, and I was one of the people that said, "Yo, you should give that to him." So I was cool with him and that crew and B. Rich and all his manager, and so I went to a concert at Morehouse. Him and Lupe were performing. So I was hanging in there in his dressing room, and I said, "Yeah, let me go over there and see Lupe," because he signed to the label. Again, I'm green. I don't know anything. I don't know that it ain't like that. When it comes to art, people don't know you like that. So yeah, I'm like going over there, like, all right. So security won't really let me in, and then I managed to tell. I showed him the card I had. Like, I work for the label. So eventually let me in. And so then Lupe walks into I'm talking to his homeboys. He walks into the dressing room, And he looks, and he's like, "Who are you?" I said, "I work for the label." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I remember, like, I was just so green. And I'm like, "Oh, it's juice. What I'm going to drink? It's for Lupe, bro." I was like, "Oh, my bad." And so then Lloyd walked in with him. And eventually they just ended up, like, kicking me out security. And I'm like, "Look, Lupe, they kicking me out." He's like, "Bro, I'm about to perform. I'm sorry, man." Again, I was green. I didn't know what I know now. It's like, okay, they don't know you. And especially before a show, you don't bother artists before a show. Dude, that's when they trying to get together and chill. That's not the time to be like, yo, man, I was watching Sports Center yesterday. And I said, no, just chill. So it was funny. Like, that happened. And then there was a time where Music Soul Child's brother, these producers invited me to the studio, the session they were doing, and they were working with Music Soul Child. And so I got there, and his brother was like, "Yo, can I help you?" I was like, "I'm here with, some producers." Like, like, "We don't know you." And he was, because Talib, I think his music name, he's like, "Talib, we don't know you. You can't come here. We don't know you." Again, I didn't know. Like, producer, like, you can't just invite somebody to a bigger artist session. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that, and so I was pissed because they wouldn't let me in. And then I had another session that night, and I went to, and Bangladesh, the producer, it was a session he was doing for the label, the songwriter. And I was there chilling. I got there early. I was watching like World War II in color. I changed it to History Channel in the studio. I was like chilling in there, just like, "Oh, man, I'm having a good time," acting like a nerd. And then they get there, and I remember Bangladesh is just chilling, and I'm telling who I am, and he's just like, "Bro, I got sun so bad." He's just like, I remember he's just brushing his beard, just chilling, and he's like, "Yeah, look, I don't make beats around people I don't know." He's like, "So you can write your name on that card, and I'll call you when I'm done." Like, I'm in downtown Atlanta. I was living in the suburbs with my stepmom. I'm like 40 minutes from here. I'm not going home. It's a 12-hour session. So I just went and said, "All right, I'm just chilling on the sofa till you finish." And so I kind of did a silent protest. I just sat on the sofa outside, just watching TV, chilling for the whole session. I took a 1-hour nap in the B room that Young Jeezy had been in. It smelled like Kush still. He had been in the day before, I think. And so then his manager came down and talked to me, and they were trying to get me to leave. I wouldn't. And he's like, "Man, you all right?" So that shows you can stand up for yourself without cussing or fussing sometimes. Just be solid. And so I respected him, but I told him I wasn't leaving. So I did like a little sit-in, so to speak. I sat outside and chilled. But it was funny. I was pissed because I got kicked out of 2 studios one night. But it taught me a lot, right? Okay, you can't rely on the label. And that's the advice I give people as an artist. Don't rely on the label or a manager or anybody to do for you what you got to do for yourself sometimes. And as an aspiring A&R or whatever, like, some people just want to be A&R so they can use that as a way of getting into everywhere. You still got to build your own connection, because think about it. If you don't do that, right? If the only reason you're relevant in a room is because you work for Atlantic or Sony, then as soon as you don't work for them, you're not relevant. And more importantly, the threat of you not working for them can make you do anything. So if you stay independent in your mindset and your abilities, nobody can control you. But if you're a loser your whole life in your mind, right? And you can start getting women and start getting let and stuff until you start working on a label. There's a lot of A&R dudes like that. And I think labels like those kind of guys, because those dudes are like do-boys. Like, if I tell you to go poison some, sabotage somebody, you're going to do it, because if I fire you and the other label doesn't hire you, you're freaking nobody, because you don't even know how to, like, get women without being A&R. You don't even know how to, like, function in life without being A&R. So I was never like that. So there you go.
Shoot, man.
More gems to take home with you.
Dropping knowledge. What was the coolest experience or the most memorable experience during that time? What's something that really sticks out?
I was like really been in studio sessions. So, well, actually, so it's funny, a non-studio story. Because I'm not really a live music person as much. I've become a little bit more now. But I really like studio and like listening to music in the car and headphones. But I remember when I first started kind of working on a label, my friend I told you about that DJ'd in college. Him and his dad just DJ'd down in Macon, Georgia. AJ the DJ. Shout out to him. He did a show in which they shouted me out at the show. And I remember Aaron Hall was performing there, right? And it's funny. Aaron Hall has such a bad reputation now. He was like the lead singer and guy. And he has a reputation for telling crazy stories. Like, his Vlad interviews are crazy. He talks insane. But as a kid, I was a big Aaron Hall fan. Like, I love Guy. I love New Jack Swing. So the fact I got a chance to kind of meet him and, and be introduced to him as someone that worked with the label, I just thought that was so cool. Like, that was someone who I grew up around, that I hung out with Frankie Beverly twice. That was cool. Again, I remember I tell you about affiliation. So when people tell you stories, oh, this person an a-hole or whatever, may or may not be true, but it also depends on who introduced you to them. So if you walked up to Michael Jordan on the street, whatever, but if someone Michael Jordan respects introduced you to him, it could be a different story.
Yeah.
So Frankie Beverly's best friend was the guy who I knew in the industry named Jerry, and he introduced me to Frankie. And I remember we met in the hotel lobby, Intercontinental Atlanta, and I was just quiet. Like, I'm talkative in a small setting sometimes, but otherwise I can be quiet. And so I kind of waited. I learned this. Wait for people to kind of invite you into the vibe, so to speak, sometimes, right? I know artists want to just jump in. You want to come in the room and just hop in. But sometimes, like, wait to be invited or wait till you kind of peep things. Don't step into situations and just... And I get it. Sometimes it's necessary if you're trying to set the tone, but you can actually be, disrupt something that way sometimes. So you got to just kind of know when and when not to do that. But I was just kind of chill and then, like, wait for them to invite me in. And then I had a lot to say. And I showed them talk old school music, my appreciation of those things, right? And so I was trying to see if Atlantic, would sign him to do like an album situation because they had signed other older artists. Meatloaf was still signed with them. Some other people. So I'm like, well, Frankie Beverly. Now, the reason I think that wouldn't have worked too is because Frankie Beverly is more so known for touring now in his older age, or it was before he retired, than putting out albums. So unless he was going to sign some kind of 360 deal where they're going to get a piece of his touring revenue, why would he do that? It wouldn't have been valuable. But he respected me because I was interested. And so I hung out with him. I got a chance to hang out with him in his house with another guy. And if I should tell this story, why not? But I was told that he respected me so much that, they didn't want to smoke the weed around me. You know what I mean? Or maybe even do other stuff. But like I was hanging at his house with him and another guy, and the guy was like, all right. And took me out. He's like, yeah, I want to do stuff around you. So I was like, okay, I respect that, But yeah, that was cool hanging with him. I hung out with him again. So yeah, like those moments. But honestly, dude, some of my favorite memories too is just being in like sessions with producers and watching them make beats. 5 o'clock in the morning, eating Taco Bell, when I'm just watching them make tracks, realizing I can stay up to 9 in the morning and go home and sleep. And that non-conventional schedule is cool, but it's good and bad because I think it can be conducive to like some bad habits if you're not careful. So like going to bed at 9 in the morning and waking up at like 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids at the time, so it was fine. But I imagine like if you're married or you have other, obligations that you can't negotiate, it can mess you up because you always out, always doing stuff. But I freaking love that. Like, you know what I mean? Like bouncing around doing all of those things. So that was cool.
Could you talk us through like let's say at the time you were working, let's say you found someone at like an open mic or something and you wanted to bring them to the record label. What did that kind of look like step by step? Or even generally speaking?
So back then, and I'm sure some things would change.
It's different now, yeah.
Even though I was on the cutting edge of what now is, right? So like we were starting looking at Google Analytics and YouTube stuff, right? And so again, me at the time being very non-political, I just saw something, I liked it, I want to work with them. And so if it was an open mic, I saw something, right? I liked it. I would, approach someone, and usually they really couldn't believe like I was who I said I was because most A&Rs aren't like that. So I was very kind of plain of speech, so to speak. Just approach them. Hey, I like this. I kind of developed a rhythm of, all right, so I heard something I like this dope, but I need to hear a little bit more in order to get a feel. Now it helps if the crowd really likes. I see the crowd really like this person, right? And that's one aspect. That means you can rock a crowd. But I want to hear more of your music, right? I want to know who you are as a person because I learned you don't just sign the person, you sign the team. You sign their personality. You sign their proclivities, you know what I mean, good or bad. So you have to kind of take all that into account. And so, I get the information, get the stuff, listen to it, build with them, get to know their team. And then, you really decide, okay, is this something that I want to like send in or not? Because at the point which you send this in, that's your reputation on the line.
Yeah. And
I learned later too is like, okay, I'm just a consultant, so I'm still building myself so I can move up. If I send this in and another A&R somebody picks it up and they cut me out of the situation at some point, I'm not really getting credit for that. So the only really I was only gonna move up, or if someone who was signed to me on managing them or signed on a production company and publishing kind of blew up. So really, like I say, at one point it was just simple. Like I got it, I liked it, I sat on it, and then I would send it in. As I grew, I started to say, okay, the way I can kind of dig myself into the situation is I had producers who I managed and work with and songwriters. So if I met somebody I liked them, I'm like, yeah, I'll send your stuff in, no strings attached. I'm not trying to sign you or anything, but I want you to work with my people as well so that we can all eat. So like, all right, I'll send your stuff in, but like get a few tracks from my folks, you know what I mean? And I think that's the fair kind of exchange. And so that's what I was. Now the process beyond that, beyond me, like once it got sent in, it got, like I said, more political. They're looking into it and getting a feel for folks and seeing who they're affiliated with and all that kind of stuff. But I was just simple, dude. I was, like I said, I was kind of foolish. I didn't know anybody. Like if you sent me something, I liked it, I sent it straight in,
And you were saying, like, during that time is when other people would be trying to, like, cut side deals and stuff with them to try to get a piece of the pie if they did.
Yeah, because it's vicious. Because so I remember one time I had an artist, and I heard her music through a producer I knew. Because again, I think a key to kind of doing well in music and other avenues too, I learned, is a lot of successful A&Rs, they have already established lanes that they draw from. So what I mean by that is they're not out there doing all the footwork, but they have the guy in Atlanta, they have the guy in St. Louis, they have people who bring them things, right? And the people who they've known for years, right? And so you can get kind of dark. So these are people who, okay, I know this guy, I know he's a cokehead and he loves women a lot. So if he brings me a female artist, I know that she probably play ball because I know how he is. You know what I mean? So again, the affiliation things again, right? I was taught that early on. It's like, all right, so some people will never rock with you or sign you to a situation because you don't get down how they get down. And that's not, and that's fine. That means you just have to find another way. And that's actually a blessing, because if you don't get down how they get down, you don't want them introducing you because people are going to assume certain things about you. And it's just not saying necessarily somebody's gay and all that, but it could be anything. Like they all do coke together. They all, I don't know, sacrifice cats and worship the devil together. I don't know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. So I've heard stories like that. So
save the cats.
Yeah, save the cats. But no, I'm saying, so it's like, that's how that kind of goes down sometimes. I think for me, I was just known as the guy that, like, I wasn't sleeping with none of my female artists. I was just kind of straight up. But I think sometimes I tolerated things I shouldn't have because I was cool with them on a human level. It's like they felt like they didn't have to produce. They could just, like, sit around and chill. And I remember one time this female artist said to me, he's like, oh, I never even met your parents before. Like, yeah, okay, all right. So it's like, man, you're like a cow that doesn't produce milk. It's like I'm like, what am I doing here? I just got a pet cow in my house. I don't, I'm not getting milk. I'm not selling it for beef. I'm just paying, I'm just paying for food and paying for vet bills. That's how I felt. Like, this is terrible. This is a horrible analogy, but I'm saying that's how I felt. So yeah, so I had to kind of learn that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, how you maneuver those things.
Anything else?
Life, man.
Read Iceberg Slim's Portrait of a Pimp. That'll tell you everything you need to learn about the music business.
What is it? Say it again.
Iceberg Slim has a book called Portrait of a Pimp.
Isn't it just called Pimp?
It's called Pimp, yeah. I think it's called Portrait of a Pimp, yeah.
Yeah, I read like the first. I read the sample of it.
It's vicious, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's Dave Chappelle quotes all the time. If you understand that, you'll understand a lot about life. And the music business, again, because it runs parallel to streets, is full of people who have a hammer and nail mindset, as I call it. Like, not everybody, but the people that think either I'm getting a nail, or they think either they're doing a hammering or they're getting hammered. That's how they look at life. And so, you just know these things, right? So you can know when you deal with somebody. Again, you don't want to, I kind of wish sometimes I hadn't talked to my artists about this stuff as much, because it gets in their head and that's all they're thinking about. I'm like, no, go work on music. I'm supposed to handle that. But I'm just telling you that because it came up in conversation, you know what I mean? Because I'm not withholding information from them. But I think some people can't handle that. Like, they can't think about all these things and produce art. Like, they just get obsessed with this stuff. And it's like,
what, the music or the business side of it?
Yeah, they get obsessed with that and political wrangling. And I'm like, yo, just do the art. The art. I will say this, like, if you continue to produce great art, it's hard for people to deny you. They might steal one record from you, but if you continue to produce great art over and over and over and show yourself that you're reliable and dependable, especially now in the independent market we live in, like, dude, people out here talking about L.A. Reid holding them back. I'm like, bro, you got freaking internet. What are you talking about? Like, and so I'm like, wait, like, what you like it doesn't matter. So I'm saying some people are just obsessed with that. Like, they're stuck in like 2003. Oh, L.A. Reid didn't sign me and he blacklisted me. I'm like, bro, it's been like 21 years. What are you talking about? So.
Oh man.
T.I. talks about that. Didn't L.A. Reid fire him?
Yeah, I heard that story because he was signed to Tip was signed to LaFace through an imprint with KP, who was A&R Ghetto Vision, and so he was like, yeah, you can either give me this money or let me go. He's like, all right, grant your wish, we'll let you go. But it worked out, and it's funny because T.I. ended up signing with Atlantic. He ended up signing the guy that ended up signing him to deal with Atlantic is one of the dudes that I used to work with. Who I'm not gonna say his name, but people listen probably can figure out who he was. A real A&R of A&R, good, bad, and ugly. Like, he knew the art of being an A&R.
Yeah.
Like, he really knew the psychology of people and artists and all that stuff. Like, this thing was formulaic. You know how he had it. I mean, he sold his publishing company for like $500 million, I think. But this dude, like, people knew, like, oh man, I didn't understand the game at the time. So I'm like, oh, this guy still in publishing, doing all this stuff. I didn't understand, like, this is just the business we're in, and everybody's doing this. So I'm not mad at him as much. I'm not even mad at, like, him not liking me, this guy. I'm not gonna say he didn't like me, but I think he didn't find me useful. You know what I mean? One way or the other. And I'm not mad at that because that's just the game we live in. Like, I would own life and live life and do other things, and we're still friends on social media and all that. Because I'm like, if I was irrelevant, we wouldn't still be friends on social media. Because people like that don't keep people around, or they don't stay connected to people who don't have value.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's funny, like, I saw, like, people know who this guy is, and they always talk crap about him in the studio, but they still cut deals with him. So that's the nature of the music business. People talk junk, and they still go and do business. Because you have to. There's no permanent enemies or allies. Like the streets, there's no permanent enemies or allies. Like, so you can do bad. Somebody can take advantage of you, but you can grow to the point where you have leverage so that now it's like, oh, okay, well, it makes sense to do a deal. You do a deal. So if you notice how I talk, there's no bitterness in anything. It's like, oh, let's just learn.
Yeah.
Right? These same people I'm talking about would do a deal with me tomorrow if it makes sense. So that's how you have to be, And so I think you can't hold on to, like, stuff, right? Even, let's say, if someone treats you well, you can't be so blinded by that you don't see the possibility that they could treat you badly. So.
If you had the opportunity to, would you ever get back into it?
That's what I was just thinking. Like, what somebody called you up?
People still do call me up. It's random. It's so funny how that happens sometimes. Like, this dude a few years ago replied back to an email from 10 years before and asked me a question about something. I was like, what? I'm like, yo, you must not have no other kind of connections because, like, I've been this a long time. But, so yes and no. So I feel like I spent so much time focusing on other people's dreams and making other people's dreams come true that I didn't really focus on, like, I'm a creative too. And I have things I want to do. I'm not a singer or rapper or nothing like that, but I like to write. So I like to screenwrite. And I eventually applied a lot of the principles I learned from the music game to my own creative stuff. So I was like, okay. I joined a group doing COVID, short film group. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to just write scripts. I want to make movies. So I had to learn how to be a director, how to, same stuff, studio etiquette, set etiquette, how to deal with people, how to navigate all this. The same thing. Like, and I've been complimented on that since I've been doing my short films. Like, oh man, like, you really seem to get all this stuff by people who've been on bigger sets and work with bigger producers and directors. I understand the entertainment business. So I'm focused in this point in my life on, like, my own creative endeavors. But, the music fire still burns in me. So I feel like I had changed. Like, my values even changed since I was in the music. So my perspective on life. So I could only work on something I felt like was in alignment with that. But this current time, like, I'm focusing on me. Like, I have a short film this weekend in Baltimore, a microfilm I'm doing. Like, I spent so much time making other people's dreams come true, and still they didn't come true for them, that, it was like a 5-year gap where I didn't work on no stuff for me. And I remember when I got in the music business, right, that same summer, I'd submitted a spec script to a lawyer, and I was talking to them about them shopping some stuff for me, and I was trying to go in the music business. And I always think, man, what if I might have not made it anyways, but, like, what if I had put that energy into my own thing?
Yeah.
But I think it helped me to learn the game of entertainment first. You know, so like now, I'm not crashing out for people. Like I get it, everybody's dream is special to them, but dude, I got responsibility. I got a wife, I got a son on the way. All that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm 37. I don't have it in me no more to do that. Like I like, but I can't be at 5 in the morning in the studio no more. I like the idea of it. Like yesterday, I had a senior citizen prom that I organized right with the JC. Shout out to JCI and I. When I got home, I was on cloud nine. Like I was in music business again. I was up at like 4:30 in the morning listening to like platters and records and stuff in the 50s. I was on cloud and I was like listening to like the golden oldie stuff. And I was like, I hadn't felt that feeling in a long time. But that's what I'm saying. It's like why Quincy Jones gave Michael Jackson up, right? And let, I forget his name now, Teddy Riley become, produce him next. Because he's like, look, I'm getting older, sound's changing. It's time for me to give you to somebody else. And so I realized for me, it's like, I can't recreate 09, 10, 11. I can't.
Yeah.
I look like the old man in the club. You know what I mean? I can't do that. But I think I have wisdom I didn't have then, right? And so I could see myself circulating back. And even with the films that I do, right, I'm very particular about the music and things like that because I'm a music person. He helped me to edit my first short film. That was really cool. So, so, I could see myself, but not the same way, to answer your question.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. You mentioned like at the beginning something about like pepper and stuff like that. I feel like I remember you mentioning you're trying to make your own. Is it hot sauce or something? Or what? Are you working on any kind of
I have a
food product?
So I have a company called Paradise Pickles and Sauces, right?
Oh, okay, that's what it is.
I just started making pickles recently, but ideally, I didn't really make pickles, and it was just kind of in there. But like, it's just a small company, a few contracts and people that I work with. Trying to grow that, but I got a lot going on, so I want to expand that and expand into other things, maybe beverages. I'm looking into that, and one thing I learned from the music business is again, like how to position myself. So it taught me a lot. So I saw young artists, you meet them at an event. Oh, what is it that you do? They name 10 things. And they give you a card with 10 things on it. Dude, that just blows people's mind. And people that are wise know you can't do all 10 things great.
Yeah.
So me, I don't talk about underdeveloped things with the mass public, with everyone. Friends, maybe. But I kind of get things to a certain point before I put it out there and talk about it. So yeah, I have a business and I'll talk to people about it here and there, but I'm still growing some things because that's how you present yourself, And sometimes I think it's as simple as that. Like you can stand out from others by just moving with more wisdom than others. So that's how I operate now. Like, I got a lot of things like the senior prom. There are people close to me apparently didn't know I was planning it. But I was telling folks, but I was so busy doing it, I got time to talk on the phone for like 2 hours about it. I got to actually do things with it. So that's what I learned in the business is how you stand out. Like I think I could dive back into the business now if I wanted to. And I'm not gonna say sign next Beyonce, but I could make some things make noise because I know how to look different. I know how to draw. I know how to draw the vultures in. I know what they want. You know what I mean? So I know how to draw. I know what they're looking for. I know how to how that stuff kind of works. You know what I mean? But it's like for what purpose? And I think if you have knowledge, you should be using it for yourself. Like don't use it. Because A&R told me once, he said, managing artists is a thankless task. Like you manage somebody, right? Blow them up, and then they're like, thank you. And they go on somebody else. Which is fair because people grow beyond that relationship, right?
Yeah.
But it sucks because it's like, all right, what am I supposed to do? I'm not guaranteed to get anybody else great. But another gem, what a lot of managers and music folks did, what I saw is they always hedged their bets. It's a good example. I say this without naming names. There was a producer who ended up blowing up pretty big. And I knew a guy that at the time, this guy managed an artist that was like kind of hot, but fledgling around 2009, 2010. And so what you have to do a lot of times is like, if you're managing somebody, people get jealous. They don't really want you, they don't want to see your attention divided between 4 or 5 other artists, right? If they're not that big time yet, they might tolerate it. But if someone's big, like if I was managing Nicki Minaj right now, I'm sure she wouldn't be like it if she felt like I was spending too much time with some other artists that weren't developed. Because in her mind, it's like, you eating off of me, right? And so don't be, if I call you, you need to pick up. That person, they ain't putting no money in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
So what our managers in the industry folks have to do is you have to figure out a way of, having the main person that kind of keeps the light bills on, right? Labels did this really well, right? While grooming the next people, And so it can be tricky. A lot of times you can do it easy if you pair people up. So if I manage a big time artist, the producers and songwriters coming up aren't their competition. In fact, they can work on a project together. But I might not be able to have a big time female R&B artist, right? And a younger female R&B artist kind of coming up my manager. Might butt heads there. And so what people would do is, again, I'm about to tell you something cold. I've seen people have folks groom their own successor. Let that sink in for a second. Literally, you groom. This is some real pimping stuff. Like, you have someone grooming the person who's going to take their spot. They don't even see it. Like, straight up, I'm saying, like, I've seen people.
It's like another artist is going to take another artist's place.
So, like, that maybe this person that's making money now is on their way out, whether they know it or not. So, you brought in someone maybe under the guise of a songwriter, right? So they don't see much competition, but you know that you're going to eventually push them as an artist.
Cold.
And so they sitting there studying. And then it's the Iceberg Slim principle.
It's a cold world.
He said it. The pimping principle is copping and blowing, right? He said you copping and blowing. You always copping and blowing, and you blow the ones that you don't use, and you copping new. And so they all that's the mindset. It's like, look, all right, I'm gonna have you groom your next one. So I knew a guy. He had an artist that was coming out. And he had the producer that was coming up. You know what he did? He loaded the dude's mixtape with all these hot tracks. The artist was hot garbage. He was going out, right? Mm-hmm. So when people heard that track, or that mixtape, they didn't care about the artist. You know what they cared about? And beats on there. Yeah. So it's free advertisement. And so then who rolls up next? The producer. So I'm telling you, dude, people kind of do that, and it's not, again, these aren't necessarily bad things. You can use it as an artist to your advantage. I told producers that, dude. Find someone, who they might have a lot of momentum. I told you this. They might have more momentum than you, right? And you're a great producer, and load them up with some dope tracks. Because even if they suck, people are going to say the production dope. Mm. You know what I mean? So, same with artists. You're going to say the production's not great, but man, he got, good content. Let me pair him with somebody that's dope. So, I just say make sure you're not free advertisement. That's the main thing. Make sure you aren't the means by which somebody else moves forward, because you're not on that same level. And you have to acknowledge there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, you as a producer, you might not be there yet. So if you got on Kendrick Lamar rapped on one of your tracks, right, and it wasn't the greatest, people might talk more about him than you. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah,
be careful of the opportunities you say you wish for, because you might not be there. That's why I think it's good to go in different environments, LA, different circles, and hear what's going on, right? Because you might think you're dope by Wilmington, Delaware standards, because we talked about this, you don't have a point of comparison. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good to be refined. That's how your ear gets better, as you're around more stuff and more people, and you grow. And don't ever be afraid to grow and elevate. I think when you're like, man, I don't want to hear any feedback, I know I'm dope, then you'll be the hottest person on Hilltop rapping. You will. You'll be like, yeah, you're a god over there, but nobody cares elsewhere. And you don't want to be that person. So, actually, some people do want to be that. Right. I think most people don't want to be that. So.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that might be a great place to kind of cut it. Did you have any last minute thoughts or anything?
Nah, I'm good.
Give everybody one quick thought. Artists, producers. Give them one quick thought to kind of close it out.
Sum it up.
Something beneficial.
Stay in school.
So, that's funny. No, so I would say
don't do drugs.
Yeah, those things definitely. I would say that think about being. I think art and the talent we have as artists is a gift from God, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand your gift, you don't understand who gave you that gift, right? Then you're just opening yourself up for someone to use that gift. Someone to use you as a propaganda tool, someone to manipulate you, and even like I know people who look back years later and they regret what they did. So don't be that person. Don't be that person that's like, man, I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I was so busy getting high and partying that I didn't realize I poisoned the mind of a whole generation. Don't be that person. That's a painful place to be. So I would say just be more aware of the source of your creativity and what you put out. I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Beautiful.
Right.
All right, let's give it up one more time for Curtis Harris Jr.
Emeritus. Thank you for coming out and sharing all your gems with us there.
Yeah, I don't hardly ever do interviews. So
Sharing some wisdom with us. We definitely appreciate you joining us, and we'll definitely have you back again because I feel like there's so much more we can dive into, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everybody tuning in, thanks for joining us. This is season 3, episode 6. And you know, we're gonna post everything, post comments in the description. We will post links and everything in the I don't even know what I'm saying.
Well, post links in the description and then leave some comments about how much you love the show. And
Thank you, Sucio.
you know,
I was struggling to get through that. What he said, we'll post links in the description. You post in the comments any thoughts or anything. If there's anybody you want to see on, you got any ideas for beats or anything for Sweet 16s, you know, you can post the links or whatever in the comments. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Again, this is Rap Diaries, season 3, episode 6. Peace.
Rap Diaries.
Peace and chicken grease.
Rap Diaries. Rap.